So I was a professional football player for 13 years. Between maybe 1994 right up to the late 2000s for different teams. First of all for Manchester United, then a team called Norwich City and Cardiff City. So I was very fortunate to have a wonderful career as a footballer, as many young men kind of aspire to, so it was always my dream. And I suppose during the process of living out that dream, maybe later on in my 20s, I kind of started to feel as if, you know, there was a bit of a void there, or an emptiness in the way I was living my life, maybe the way the football life, the lifestyle around the game. I was growing more and more dissatisfied with the way I was living, the kind of my emphasis on like material things, putting all my trust in these things as if they were going to bring me happiness. And yet I still loved the game. I loved playing every day and I loved playing football. But I kind of grew maybe more dissatisfied with the lifestyle and started to ask some deeper questions. And I was very fortunate I had a family member who was quite devout, my sister. And she would phone me or she would send me books on the Catholic faith. And for a lot of years I wasn't really interested. And only in my later 20s, when I started to feel that kind of sort of emptiness, I started to pick up these books and read them. And I found that there was something very much in them, in the power of the words that affected a kind of change in me and a kind of a peace or so forth. There was a kind of Protestant pastor as well who kind of had written a kind of famous book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And at this stage, you know, I just picked it up, and it had a very simple message. It was, you know, that irrespective of what you do in life, your job or your occupation, that ultimately, at the most fundamental level, God has created you for a purpose, and your identity is not to be sought only in what you do. It's who you are. And I very much needed to hear that message, because my whole identity was caught up in the fact that I was a footballer. And outside of that, I didn't really know who I was, in a sense. That's, you know, and so the sense that God from all eternity had a purpose for me, not just to be a footballer, but to be something else, to be His child and to know and love Him. So that was a kind of a very message that really hit me right away. And then later, I obviously fell in love with my faith once again, reading lots of the church fathers and lots of the lives of the saints and things like that. I kind of couldn't stop reading all these different things. And so I went with that, and I kind of explored the faith a little bit more. And I kind of made a radical decision in 2009 that I would come back to Ireland for maybe a year, take a year out of football, and always with the intention of going back, finishing my career, and maybe becoming a manager afterwards. And it was really during that year that I discovered my vocation and my faith again on a regular basis. I started to go to Mass again, I started to pray the Rosary. I joined a group called the Legion of Mary in Ireland. And really there my faith became central again. And it really, once that became such a focal point in my everyday life, I really couldn't go back to football the way I had before. It was during that year I started to feel the stirrings of a religious vocation. And in 2009 I entered the seminary to study for the priesthood, and 7 years later here I am. I was ordained last week, so that's a short version of quite a long story. You know, the football world and watching football games and follow your team can make you very passionate, and it appeals to the senses. You know, you're in a crowd, you get a sense of camaraderie with people who support the same team. So on the sense level, you get very passionate. But the faith is often very different, and that's why it's maybe difficult for people. The faith needs us to be silent, to be people of prayer. It's not as kind of euphoric as being in a football stadium or watching the game, but yet it speaks to us as a deeper level, and brings us a joy and a happiness that it's not just an hour and a half on a Saturday afternoon supporting your team with that high that it can give you, and then often the low because they've lost or whatever, you know, which is obviously not good if you're bringing that home to your family life and all those different kind of things. But you know, soccer's a gift. It's a great gift. It's how we use these things. It's how we order them properly. And I would say that, you know, to people, you know, for myself as well, that if your faith is the foundation of all that you do, that it actually enhances everything else and gives you a greater joy to experience everything else, because everything's ordered properly.